She refused to let them close the coffin. A 10-year-old nobody had ever seen before, clinging to the biker wife's casket, whispering promises no child should keep. The bikers thought she was just a grieving kid. They had no idea she was the only witness to the murder, and the betrayal came from inside their own club. The church smelled like leather and tears. 23 steel serpents stood in formation inside the small rural chapel, their boots silent against worn wooden floors. Outside, their motorcycles lined the gravel lot like metal tombstones. Inside, Maria's coffin rested on a platform draped in black velvet, surrounded by white roses that seemed too pure for the violence that had taken her life. Jackson stood closest to the coffin, his jaw locked tight enough to crack teeth. He hadn't slept in 4 days. Hadn't eaten in 2. The president patch on his leather vest felt heavier than it ever had before, weighing him down like an anchor trying to pull him through the floor. Maria was supposed to be untouchable. She was his wife. Under club protection. Under his protection. And now she was cold wood and silence. The pastor cleared his throat nervously, glancing at the bikers like he expected them to explode at any moment. "We'll now have a moment of silence before." "Wait." The voice was small. High-pitched. A child's voice. Every head in the chapel turned. A little girl stood in the doorway. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, wearing jeans 2 sizes too big and a faded purple jacket with a torn sleeve. Her dark hair hung in tangled waves around a face streaked with dirt and dried tears. Her sneakers were held together with duct tape. Nobody moved. "Who the hell?" Marcus, Jackson's lieutenant, started forward, but Jackson held up one hand. Marcus froze. The girl walked down the center aisle. Her steps were slow, deliberate. She didn't look at the bikers on either side, 23 men who could crush her without thinking. She only looked at the coffin. When she reached it, she threw both arms around the polished wood and pressed her cheek against its surface. "No," she whispered. "Not yet." The pastor shifted uncomfortably. "Young lady, I'm afraid." "I said not yet." Her voice cracked but didn't waver. She squeezed the coffin tighter. Jackson felt something twist in his chest. He stepped forward carefully, the way you approach a wounded animal. "Hey. Kid. What's your name?" She didn't turn around. "Riley." "Riley," he kept his voice soft. "How did you know Maria?" "She saved me." Riley's shoulders shook. 3 months ago. She found me sleeping behind a dumpster and bought me food. She kept coming back. She was the only person who, her voice broke completely. The chapel was silent except for the sound of the girl crying against the coffin. Jackson crouched down beside her, eye level now. His throat felt like broken glass. "Riley, I know this is hard, but we need to. I promised her." Riley finally lifted her head. Her eyes were red-rimmed but fierce. "I promised I wouldn't let anyone close the coffin until they knew the truth." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What truth?" Marcus's voice came from behind them, sharp with suspicion. Riley reached into her jacket pocket. Her hands trembled as she pulled out a small metal locket on a thin chain. She opened it with shaking fingers, and a tiny speaker crackled to life. Maria's voice filled the chapel. "Riley, baby, if you're hearing this, something happened to me. I need you to protect me until they know who betrayed us. Don't let them bury me until Jackson knows. Someone in the club, someone we trust, they're planning something terrible. I found proof. But if I'm dead, it means they found me first. Promise me, Riley. Promise you'll tell them." The recording clicked off. The silence that followed was suffocating. Jackson's hands curled into fists. His vision blurred red at the edges. What did she just say? Riley clutched the locket to her chest. She said someone betrayed her. Someone in your club. That's impossible. Marcus moved closer, his face twisted in anger. Maria died because the warlords forced her off Route 9. Everyone knows that. This kid's making shit up for attention. I'm not. Riley's shout echoed off the chapel walls. She pointed at Marcus with a shaking finger. I was there. I saw what happened. Every biker in the room went rigid. Jackson's voice came out barely above a whisper. You saw the crash? Riley nodded, tears streaming down her face. I was hiding under the bridge. The one near the old mill. I sleep there sometimes when it's cold. I heard motorcycles coming fast, and I looked up. She squeezed her eyes shut like she was trying to block out the memory. There were 2 bikes. Maria was in front. She was going fast, but the other one was faster. It came up beside her and it forced her toward the guardrail. She tried to swerve but there was nowhere to go. The bike hit her and she went over the edge. Jackson couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The warlords. It wasn't the warlords. Riley opened her eyes and looked straight at him. The person who killed her was wearing your patch. The steel serpents. I saw it on their vest before they drove away. The chapel erupted. Bikers shouted over each other. Chairs scraped. Fists pounded against walls. Someone threw a hymnal that smashed against the far wall. She's lying. This is bullshit. No kid was at that bridge. Enough. Jackson's roar cut through the chaos like a chainsaw. Everyone froze. He stood slowly, his 6'3" frame towering over the small girl who refused to let go of his wife's coffin. When he spoke again, his voice was cold steel. Riley. Look at me. She did. Are you telling me that someone in this club, someone wearing our patch, someone Maria trusted, murdered my wife? Riley nodded. She knew. That's why she gave me the locket. She said if anything happened to her, I had to make sure you found out before they could cover it up. Jackson turned to face his brothers. 22 men stared back at him. Men he'd ridden with for years. Men he'd bled with. Men he'd trusted with his life. One of them had killed Maria. He looked at the coffin, at his wife's final resting place that couldn't rest yet, and then back at Riley's terrified, determined face. Nobody touches this coffin, he said quietly. The funeral's postponed. We're taking this back to the clubhouse, he pointed at the pastor. You keep this room locked. Nobody comes in or out until I say so. The pastor nodded frantically. Jackson looked down at Riley. You're coming with us. You're going to tell us everything you saw. Every single detail. Riley nodded and finally released her grip on the coffin. As the steel serpents filed out of the chapel in tense silence, Jackson took one last look at Maria's coffin. I'll find who did this, he promised silently. Even if it destroys the club. Even if it destroys me. Behind him, Riley slipped her small hand into his scarred, tattooed one. She said you'd believe me, Riley whispered. She said you'd choose the truth no matter what. Jackson squeezed her hand gently. The truth was about to burn everything to the ground. The clubhouse sat 15 miles outside town, a sprawling compound of concrete and steel surrounded by chain-link fence and razor wire. The main building had been a warehouse once, before the steel serpents claimed it and turned it into something halfway between a fortress and a home. Riley stood in the center of the meeting room, dwarfed by the long table and high ceilings. 23 bikers formed a semicircle around her, their faces ranging from skeptical to furious to unreadable. Jackson sat at the head of the table, his hands clasped in front of him. Play it again. Riley's fingers fumbled with the locket. Maria's voice crackled out once more, filling the room with words recorded from beyond the grave. When it finished, the silence felt alive with tension. Could be faked, someone muttered from the back. It's her voice, Jackson said flatly. I'd know it anywhere. Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on the table. Even if it's real, the kid could have stolen it. Could have found it after the crash. Doesn't mean Maria actually gave it to her. Riley's face flushed red. She did give it to me. 2 weeks before she died, she came to the bridge and said she needed someone she could trust. Someone outside the club. Why you? Marcus pressed. Why would Maria trust some random street kid with something this important? Because I had nothing to lose. Riley's voice shook but held firm. She said everyone else could be bought or threatened or hurt. But nobody knew about me. Nobody cared about me. That made me safe. Jackson felt that twist in his chest again. It sounded exactly like something Maria would say. She'd always had a soft spot for lost causes, broken things that needed fixing. She'd fixed him once, pulled him back from the edge when he'd been ready to ride his bike off a cliff and call it an accident. Tell us about the crash, he said quietly. Everything you remember. Riley closed her eyes. It was late. Maybe 11 o'clock. I was trying to sleep under the bridge, but I heard engines. 2 motorcycles, really loud. I looked up through the gaps in the bridge boards and saw them coming down Route 9-inch. Describe the bikes, Marcus interrupted. The first one was Maria's. Dark blue with silver flames. I recognized it because she always parked it near the diner where I sometimes got food from the trash. Riley's voice cracked. The second bike was black. Bigger. It came up fast on her left side. What happened next? Jackson's knuckles had gone white. The black bike swerved into her. Just slammed into her side while they were going full speed. Maria tried to brake but there was no time. She hit the guardrail and went over. Riley's whole body trembled. I heard the crash. Metal and glass and then nothing. Just silence. Did you see the rider's face? Someone asked. No. They wore a full helmet with a dark visor. But I saw the vest. Black leather with the steel serpent's patch on the back. The snake and the skull. Everyone in this room has that patch, Marcus said. Doesn't tell us anything. The bike does. Riley opened her eyes. It had something painted on the gas tank. Red letters. I couldn't read all of it from under the bridge, but I saw war and some numbers. Maybe a 1 and a 7. The room went dead silent. Jackson's head snapped toward Marcus. Who rides a black bike with war on the tank? Marcus's face had gone pale. That could be anybody. Lots of bikes have custom paint. Not in this club. Jackson stood slowly. Only one person here has warrior painted on their tank. And the number 17 for the year they joined. Every eye in the room turned to the back corner, where a biker named Tommy sat frozen in his chair. He was 28, wiry and nervous, with a scar across his left eyebrow from a bar fight 3 years ago. Tommy's chair scraped backward. I wasn't anywhere near Route 9 that night. Where were you? Jackson's voice could have cut steel. Home. I was home watching TV. Anyone with you? Tommy's mouth opened and closed. No, but nothing. Jackson started walking toward him. My wife is dead. This girl says she saw a steel serpent's bike with war on the tank. Your bike is the only one that fits. I'm being set up. Tommy's voice climbed to a shout. Someone's trying to frame me. Then where's your bike now? Marcus asked coldly. Tommy's face went gray. In the garage. Where it always is. Let's go look at it, Jackson said. Right now. The group moved as one toward the garage attached to the clubhouse. Tommy stumbled along with them, protesting the whole way. When they reached his bike, Jackson circled it slowly. The gas tank was freshly painted. Solid black. No words. No numbers. You repainted it, Jackson said flatly. 2 days ago. I just wanted a new look. 2 days after Maria died. That's coincidence. Jackson grabbed Tommy by the vest and slammed him against the wall. Where were you the night she died? I told you, home. Riley stepped forward, staring at Tommy's face. Her voice came out small and certain. The scar. I remember the scar on his eyebrow. When he took his helmet off after the crash, I saw it under the streetlight before he drove away. Tommy's face crumbled. No. No, she's lying. But Jackson had already seen the truth written in Tommy's eyes. The betrayal was real. And it was just beginning. Tommy's knees buckled. Jackson held him against the wall with one hand, his forearm pressed across Tommy's throat just hard enough to make breathing difficult. Talk, Jackson said. Right now. Or I let every man here take a turn. I can't. Tommy gasped. They'll kill me. I'll kill you if you don't, Jackson pressed harder. Who paid you? I didn't, it wasn't supposed to, Tommy's words came out in desperate bursts. I just had to scare her. Push her around a little, make her back off from whatever she was investigating. Nobody said anything about killing her. The garage exploded with shouts. Bikers surged forward, ready to tear Tommy apart with their bare hands. Marcus grabbed 2 of them, holding them back. Let Jax handle this. Jackson released the pressure slightly. Who gave the order? Tommy's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. If I tell you, I'm dead anyway. You're dead right now unless you start talking, Jackson's voice dropped to something below a whisper. Maria was your sister in this club. We swore oaths. We bled together. And you killed her for money? $50,000. Tommy screamed. They offered me $50,000. I've got a kid, man. A daughter. Child support is crushing me. I was going to lose my apartment. I was desperate. Riley spoke up from behind the wall of bikers. You killed someone's wife for money. Someone who probably would have helped you if you just asked. Tommy's face crumpled. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Maria did help me. She loaned me $3,000 last year when my ex took me to court. She never even asked for it back. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the garage floor. God, what did I do? Jackson crouched in front of him. Last chance. Who hired you? Tommy's voice came out broken. I don't know his real name. He contacted me through encrypted messages. Called himself the broker, said someone high up in the club needed Maria gone because she'd found evidence of something big. Weapons deals, cartel connections, trafficking routes. He said if I didn't do it, they'd find someone else, and my daughter would accidentally end up in the system while I had a fatal accident. Bullshit, Marcus spat. Nobody in this club works with cartels. We run clean operations. Gambling, some protection money, bike repairs. We don't touch drugs or guns. That's what I thought too. Tommy looked up at Jackson with hollow eyes. But the broker knew things. He knew about club finances I'd never seen. He knew about properties we supposedly own that aren't in any records. He knew about shipments coming through the docks that nobody ever mentioned in meetings. Jackson felt ice spreading through his veins. What kind of shipments? I don't know. He never said. Just that Maria found invoices, receipts, something that proved one of us was running shadow operations. She was going to expose everything. Riley stepped forward, pulling something from her jacket pocket. She gave me more than the locket. Every head turned. In Riley's hand was a small USB drive, bright red, attached to a keychain shaped like a motorcycle. Maria said this proves everything, Riley continued. But she encrypted it. She said only Jackson would know the password, and I should only give it to him if something happened to her. Jackson took the drive carefully, like it might explode. Did she tell you what's on it? Names. Dates. Transaction records. Audio recordings. Riley's voice steadied. She said whoever's behind this has been stealing from the club for 2 years. Millions of dollars moving through fake accounts. She found the money trail and started gathering evidence, but they figured out what she was doing. Marcus moved closer. If this is true, we're talking about someone with serious access. Someone high up who handles finances or logistics. That's half the leadership table, someone muttered. Jackson looked around the room at faces he'd known for years. Brothers he'd trusted with his life. Somewhere in this compound, maybe even in this garage right now, was the person who'd ordered Maria's death. Here's what happens next, he said, standing. Tommy, you're going in the basement lockup until I decide what to do with you. Marcus, I want every financial record we have pulled and ready for review. Everyone else, nobody leaves the compound without my direct permission. We're on lockdown until we find out who the broker is. And the funeral? Someone asked quietly. Jackson looked at Riley. She still clutched Maria's locket in her other hand, her small face set with determination that seemed too old for her years. The funeral waits, he said. Maria wanted the truth. We're going to give it to her. He held up the USB drive, and it caught the garage's fluorescent light. Someone in this room is a traitor. Someone Maria trusted. Someone I trusted, his voice carried to every corner. And I'm going to find them if I have to burn this whole club to the ground. Riley moved to stand beside him. Together, they looked like vengeance waiting to happen. The clubhouse felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Midnight had come and gone. Most of the bikers had scattered to different corners of the compound, forming small groups that whispered in tight circles. Trust was fracturing like thin ice under heavy boots. Jackson sat alone in his office, staring at the red USB drive on his desk. Maria's laptop was open in front of him, the cursor blinking in the password field. He'd tried her birthday. Their anniversary. The date they'd first met. Nothing worked. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Come in. Riley pushed the door open. She'd cleaned up a little, someone had found her a Steel Serpents t-shirt that hung to her knees and helped her wash the dirt from her face. But her eyes still carried shadows too dark for a 10-year-old. Can't sleep? Jackson asked. Nobody here trusts me. Riley closed the door behind her. I heard them talking. They think I'm lying. That I'm working with someone to tear the club apart from inside. Are you? Riley met his gaze without flinching. No. Jackson studied her. He'd spent 15 years reading people, learning to spot liars and rats and undercover cops. This kid looked him straight in the eye without fear, without hesitation. Either she was telling the truth, or she was the best actor he'd ever met. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Riley climbed into it, her feet dangling above the floor. For a long moment, neither spoke. Maria talked about you, Riley finally said. A lot. She said you were the toughest man she'd ever met, but also the fairest. She said when you gave your word, it was solid as concrete. Jackson's throat tightened. She said that? Every time. She said you'd built this club on loyalty and honor, and that you'd never let anyone corrupt it. Riley's voice dropped. That's why she was so scared. Because she knew what finding out the truth would do to you. Did she say who she suspected? No. She said she couldn't tell me in case they got to me first. The less I knew, the safer I'd be. Riley pulled her knees up to her chest. But she was terrified those last 2 weeks. She kept looking over her shoulder. She stopped coming to see me as often. When she gave me the USB, her hands were shaking. Jackson picked up the drive, turning it over in his calloused fingers. I can't crack the password. She said you'd know it. Something only you and her shared. He'd tried everything. Their first date location. Her mother's maiden name. The nickname he called her that nobody else knew. Nothing worked. A shout from outside made them both jump. Jackson was on his feet instantly, grabbing the pistol from his desk drawer. Stay here. Lock the door behind me. No, Riley stood too. Wherever you go, I go. Maria made me promise to see this through. Kid. My name is Riley, her jaw set stubbornly. And I'm not staying locked in a room while people are fighting over whether I'm telling the truth. I saw what I saw. I'm the only witness you have. Jackson wanted to argue, but another shout cut through the night. He swore under his breath. Stay behind me. Don't say a word. If shooting starts, you hit the floor. Understand? Riley nodded. They moved through the hallway together, Jackson's gun held low and ready. The sounds came from the main meeting room. Raised voices. Something breaking. When they entered, they found the club split into two groups facing each other across the long table. Marcus stood on one side with about 10 bikers. A man named Vic, the club's treasurer, stood on the other with roughly equal numbers. Don't trust a damn thing coming out of that child's mouth. Vic was shouting. She shows up out of nowhere with a convenient story and suddenly we're tearing each other apart. The story checks out. Marcus shot back. Tommy confessed. The evidence is real. Tommy's a coward who'd say anything to save his skin. Vic slammed his fist on the table. For all we know, this is a setup by the warlords to destroy us from inside. They plant the kid, feed her a story, watch us implode. The warlords don't think that strategically, Marcus said coldly. This is internal. Someone's been stealing from us and Maria found out. Then show us the proof. Vic gestured at Jackson. Show us what's on that USB drive. It's encrypted, Jackson said quietly. Every eye turned to him. I haven't cracked it yet. Convenient, Vic's eyes narrowed. Real convenient that the only evidence is locked behind a password nobody knows. Maybe there's nothing on that drive at all. Maybe this whole thing is. Careful, Jackson's voice dropped to permafrost. Finish that sentence and we're going to have a problem. Vic held his gaze for a long moment, then looked away first. I'm just saying what half this room is thinking. We're cannibalizing ourselves over accusations from a homeless kid who... I'm not homeless, Riley said quietly. Every head swiveled toward her. I sleep rough because my foster father liked to use me as a punching bag. I ran. Maria found me. She was the first adult in 2 years who didn't try to hurt me or use me or ignore me. The room went silent. So yeah, Riley continued, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks, I'm just a kid. But I'm a kid who watched your president's wife get murdered. And I'm a kid who promised to help find her killer. You can believe me or not. But I'm not leaving until this is finished. Jackson felt something shift in his chest, pride mixed with rage mixed with grief. Meeting's over, he announced. Everyone get some sleep. Tomorrow we start digging into every financial transaction from the last 3 years. Every shipment. Every deposit. Every dollar that moved through this club. And if we find nothing? Vic challenged. Then we keep looking, Jackson's hand tightened on his gun. Because someone killed Maria. And I'm going to find them. Dawn broke gray and cold over the compound. Jackson had been awake all night, staring at financial records until the numbers blurred together. Nothing obvious jumped out, no massive withdrawals, no suspicious payments. Whoever was stealing from the club knew how to hide their tracks. Riley had fallen asleep in the corner of his office, curled up in an old leather chair with a blanket someone had brought her. She looked even smaller in sleep, her face peaceful in a way it never was when she was awake. Marcus knocked and entered without waiting for permission. "Tech guys ready. Leo runs a computer shop in the city, does side work for people who need things kept quiet. If anyone can crack that USB, it's him. He trustworthy?" As much as anyone right now, Marcus's face was haggard. He hadn't slept either. Which isn't saying much. Jackson gently shook Riley awake. She startled hard, her fists coming up defensively before her eyes focused. "Easy," he said softly. "Just me. We're taking a ride to the city." 20 minutes later, they were on the road. Jackson rode his bike with Riley clinging to his back, her small arms wrapped around his waist. Marcus led the way on his own ride, with 4 more bikers flanking them as security. The USB drive was zipped into Jackson's vest pocket, pressed against his heart where Maria's wedding photo used to rest. The highway stretched empty before them, cutting through pine forest still dark with morning shadow. The rumble of 6 motorcycles echoed off the trees. Riley's grip tightened whenever they took a curve too fast, but she never asked him to slow down. They were 15 miles from the city when Marcus's bike swerved suddenly. Jackson looked up to see 3 motorcycles blocking the road ahead, riders dressed in black with full helmets. No patches. No colors. Nothing identifying. "Ambush!" Marcus shouted, skidding sideways. Gunfire erupted. Jackson yanked his bike hard right, jumping the shallow ditch and tearing into the forest. Riley screamed in his ear but held on. Behind them, the steel serpents scattered, engines roaring as they dodged between trees. More bikes appeared from the forest, 4, 5, 6 of them. They'd been waiting. "The helmets!" Riley shrieked. "Those are the same helmets. The same bikes." Jackson's blood went cold. These were the people who'd killed Maria. And now they were here for the USB drive, which meant someone had told them about it. A bullet whined past his head and shattered bark from a pine tree. Jackson twisted the throttle, his bike jumping forward. The forest floor was a nightmare of roots and rocks, but he'd been riding since he was 12. His hands moved on instinct, dodging obstacles while his mind raced. Someone in the club had tipped off the attackers. Someone had told them exactly where they'd be and when. Only the leadership knew about this trip. Marcus pulled alongside him, his gun out. "Head for the old logging road. 2 miles north." They broke from the trees onto a dirt path barely wide enough for the bikes. The attackers followed, their engines screaming. One pulled up beside a steel serpent named Danny and forced him into a tree. Danny went down hard, his bike cartwheeling end over end. "Danny," someone shouted. "Keep moving." Jackson roared back. The logging road dead-ended at an abandoned mill. Jackson skidded to a stop, Riley tumbling off the bike. Inside. Now. The remaining steel serpents, Jackson, Marcus, Riley, and 3 others, ran for the mill's entrance. Behind them, the attackers' bikes formed a semicircle, cutting off escape. Inside the mill, Jackson positioned his people behind rusted machinery and rotted support beams. He had his pistol. Marcus had a gun and a hunting knife. The others were armed with whatever they carried, a crowbar, a chain, 1 more pistol between 3 men. "We're outgunned," Marcus said flatly. "Then we get smart," Jackson looked at Riley. "How many bikes did you see at Maria's crash?" "Just 1. Just the one that killed her. Now there's 9 out there." Jackson's mind worked fast. This isn't about revenge or cleanup. They want something. "The USB," Marcus said. As if on cue, a voice echoed from outside. "Jackson. We know you're in there." The voice was distorted, running through some kind of modulator that made it sound mechanical and inhuman. "Send out the drive and the girl, and we let the rest of you ride away." Riley grabbed Jackson's arm. "Don't." "Wasn't planning on it," he raised his voice. "How about you come in here and take them?" Silence. "Then, you're making a mistake. The people you trust are lying to you. The girl is bait. This whole thing is a setup to destroy the steel serpents from inside." "He's right about one thing," Marcus muttered. "Someone's definitely trying to destroy us from inside. If we had any sense, we'd give them what they want," one of the other bikers hissed. "We're dead if we stay here." "We're dead if we give up that drive," Jackson countered. "That USB is the only proof we have. It's the only thing keeping Maria's killer from walking free." Riley was staring out through a gap in the mill's walls, her face pale. "They're spreading out. Surrounding the building." Jackson checked his ammunition. 1 magazine. 15 rounds. Against 9 armed riders who clearly had no problem killing. The odds were bad. But he'd faced bad odds before. "Marcus, you're with me. We're going out the back. Everyone else, you make noise here, make them think we're all still inside." "That's suicide," someone protested. "Got a better idea?" Jackson looked at Riley. "You stay here. Stay low. Don't move until—" "No," Riley's voice was steel. "I go with you. Maria trusted me with this. I'm seeing it through." Jackson wanted to argue. But he saw Maria in this kid's eyes, the same stubborn courage, the same refusal to back down. "Fine. But you do exactly what I say. Deal?" Riley nodded. Outside, the attackers were closing in. Inside, Jackson prepared for war. The back of the mill opened onto a ravine choked with blackberry bushes and fallen trees. Jackson went first, his boots finding purchase on loose rocks. Riley followed, her small frame slipping through gaps he had to force his way past. Marcus came last, his gun sweeping back toward the mill where gunfire had just erupted. "They're inside," Marcus breathed. "Move." They scrambled down the ravine as bullets chewed through rotten wood above them. Shouts echoed between the trees. Someone screamed, one of their own or an attacker, Jackson couldn't tell. At the bottom, a narrow stream cut through the forest. Jackson splashed through it, Riley's hand locked in his. They ran for 10 minutes straight, branches whipping their faces, until the sounds of fighting faded behind them. Finally, Jackson stopped, his lungs burning. "We need to keep moving. They'll track us." "Leo's shop is 3 miles east," Marcus said, checking his phone. "We can cut through the industrial district." "On foot with a kid?" Jackson shook his head. "We're sitting ducks." "I can keep up," Riley insisted, though her breathing came hard and fast. They had no choice. Jackson took point, moving fast but careful, his eyes scanning for threats. 40 minutes later, they emerged from the woods behind a strip of warehouses. The city sprawled ahead, ugly and beautiful in the morning light. Leo's computer repair sat wedged between a pawn shop and a Thai restaurant, its windows covered with security bars and faded advertisements. Jackson pounded on the back door until a peephole slid open. "Jesus, Jax," Leo's voice came through muffled. "You look like you fought a forest. Open up. Now." Locks clicked. The door swung inward. Leo was 40-something, skinny as wire, with glasses held together by electrical tape. His shop smelled like solder and energy drinks. "What happened to you guys?" Leo asked, taking in their torn clothes and bleeding scratches. "We got hit," Marcus pushed past him. "Lock that door. Don't open it for anyone." "Who hit you?" "That's what we're here to find out." Jackson pulled the USB drive from his vest. "Can you crack this?" Leo took it carefully, turning it over in his hands. Encryption? Military grade, probably. And it's password protected. That's going to take time. Maybe days if it's serious encryption. Leo moved to his workstation, 3 monitors forming a half circle around a keyboard that looked like it had survived a war. What's on it? Evidence that someone in my club has been running weapons and working with cartels, Jackson said. And that same someone killed my wife to keep it quiet. Leo's fingers froze over the keyboard. Maria's dead? The pain in Jackson's chest flared fresh. 3 days ago. God, Jax. I'm sorry. She was good people. Leo plugged in the drive. Code scrolled across his screens. This is nasty encryption. Whoever locked this knew what they were doing. But there's something else here. A secondary layer. Like a backup system. What does that mean? Riley asked. It means if I crack the password wrong too many times, the whole thing wipes itself clean. Self-destruct protocol. Leo looked at Jackson. You get 3 tries. Maybe 4 if I can bypass the counter. After that, everything deletes permanently. Can you crack it without the password? Given enough time, yeah. But we're talking weeks, maybe months. Brute force decryption against military grade. We don't have weeks. Marcus slumped against the wall. Those riders will find us. And whoever sent them knows we have this drive. Then we need the password. Leo turned to Jackson. You knew Maria better than anyone. What would she use? Something only you would know? Jackson had been asking himself that question all night. I've tried everything. Every important date, every private joke, every... Wait, Riley stepped forward. Maria told me something. The night she gave me the drive. She said. Riley closed her eyes, concentrating. She said, the password is what Jackson calls home, but not the place. Jackson's mind spun. Not the place. What did he call home that wasn't? And then it hit him. Maria, he whispered. I always told her she was my home. Not the compound, not the club. Her. Try it, Marcus urged. Leo typed, MRA. The screen flashed red. Password incorrect. 2 attempts remaining. Wait. Riley grabbed Jackson's arm. She said what you call home. What did you actually call her? Jackson's throat closed. There was a name he'd called Maria. A private name from their first night together when she'd asked him what he was searching for in life and he'd said, a place to finally stop running. She'd kissed him and said, then stop running. Sanctuary, Jackson said. Type sanctuary. Leo's fingers moved, sanctuary. The screen turned green. Files exploded across the monitors. Hundreds of documents, spreadsheets, audio recordings, photographs. Leo whistled low. Holy hell. This is massive. Jackson leaned closer. The first file was a spreadsheet showing wire transfers. Millions of dollars moving through offshore accounts. Dates going back 2 years. Payments labeled as equipment maintenance and facility repairs that were 50 times higher than any legitimate expense. Weapons shipments, Marcus breathed, opening another file. Crates moving through the docks. Maria documented everything. Container numbers, dates, destinations. Leo clicked on an audio file. Maria's voice filled the shop. I'm telling you, the numbers don't add up. Someone's using club resources to move military-grade weapons. ARs, explosives, even RPGs. And the buyer is Sinaloa cartel. A second voice responded. Male. Familiar. Maria, you need to drop this. It's bigger than you think. People will get hurt. People are already getting hurt. These weapons are killing civilians across the border. I have proof. Then you're signing your own death warrant. The recording cut off. Jackson's hands shook. He knew that second voice. He'd heard it his entire life in this club. Play it again, he whispered. Leo replayed it. The voice was undeniable. Marcus stared at the screen, his face ashen. That can't be. Riley looked between them. Who is it? Jackson's world tilted sideways. Because the voice on the recording, the voice warning Maria she was signing her death warrant, belonged to his best friend. His lieutenant. His brother. Marcus, Jackson said hollowly. That's your voice. The room froze. Marcus's face went from ashen to bone white. Jax, that's not, I never. That's your voice. Jackson's hand moved to his pistol. On a recording where you're telling Maria to back off from investigating weapons shipments. You think I killed her? Marcus's voice cracked. You think I'd hurt Maria? She was like a sister to me. Then explain the recording. Jackson pulled his gun, aiming it at the man he'd trusted for 15 years. Explain why you're on tape warning her off. Because she told me what she'd found. Marcus's hands came up, empty and shaking. She came to me 3 weeks before she died. Said she'd discovered something terrible and didn't know who to trust. I told her to be careful because I was scared for her. Convenient story. It's the truth. Sweat beaded on Marcus's forehead. Jax, we've been brothers since we were kids. I would never. Open the next file, Jackson said to Leo, his gun never wavering. Leo clicked. A photograph filled the screen. It showed Marcus standing in a parking lot at night, talking to a man in an expensive suit. The timestamp read 3 months ago. Who is that? Riley asked. Hector Vega, Leo said quietly. I've seen his face in the news. He's a lieutenant in the Sinaloa cartel. High-level operations. Marcus stumbled backward. That's fake. That's photoshopped. Someone's setting me up. There's more. Leo scrolled through files. More photos. Marcus at the docks. Marcus meeting with unknown men outside warehouses. Marcus handling briefcases that presumably held cash. It's all here. Financial records showing payments to offshore accounts in your name. Emails coordinating shipments. You're the connection, Marcus. You're the one running weapons through club operations. No. Marcus's shout was anguished. I'm being framed. Someone's using my identity, my accounts. Your voice, Jackson cut in coldly. Your face in photos. Your accounts with millions of dollars. The evidence is right there. Jax, please. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. We grew up together. I was best man at your wedding. I held your hand when your father died. You know me. You know I could never. I knew Maria too. Jackson's finger moved to the trigger. And now she's dead because someone betrayed her. All the evidence points to you. Then the evidence is planted. Marcus's voice rose to desperation. Think about it. Why would Maria trust me with what she found if I was the one running the operation? Why would I help you investigate if I was guilty? I've been right beside you this whole time. To control the investigation, Riley said quietly. To make sure we didn't find the real truth. Marcus looked at her with something like hatred. You show up out of nowhere with a convenient story and now you're tearing us apart. She showed up with Maria's locket and the USB drive, Jackson interrupted. Evidence you clearly didn't know existed, or you would have found it before we did. I didn't know because I'm not involved. Marcus backed toward the door. Jax, I'm begging you. Don't do this. Let me help you find who really killed Maria. Let me prove I'm innocent. You can prove it from the lockup back at the compound. Jackson stepped forward. You're coming back with us. We'll sort through every piece of evidence, and if you're innocent, we'll find out. And if whoever really did this is still at the compound? Marcus's hand moved behind his back. If they get to me before I can prove anything? Don't. Jackson's voice went arctic. Don't reach for whatever you're reaching for. Time stretched like taffy. Marcus's hand whipped forward with a gun, not aimed at Jackson, but at the computer. He fired 3 times. The monitors exploded in showers of sparks and glass. Leo screamed and dove for cover. I'm sorry. Marcus shouted over the ringing gunfire. But I'm not going down for something I didn't do. He kicked over Leo's desk, creating a barrier, and fired twice more, this time at the USB drive still plugged into the ruined computer. The drive shattered into pieces. No! Riley screamed. Marcus bolted for the back door. Jackson fired, but Marcus was already moving, the bullet punching through the doorframe. By the time Jackson reached the door, Marcus was on a bike, not his own, something he must have staged earlier, roaring away down the alley. Jackson ran outside, fired twice more, but Marcus disappeared around a corner. Gone. Back inside, Leo was pulling himself up, bleeding from cuts where glass had hit him. The drive. The computer. Everything's destroyed. Everything? Jackson felt his world crumbling. I had it open for maybe 3 minutes. Got through maybe 5% of the files before Leo gestured at the smoking wreckage. I'm sorry, Jax. It's all gone. Riley knelt beside the shattered USB drive, tears streaming down her face. Maria died for this. She died gathering this evidence. And now it's gone. Jackson's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Your lieutenant just called me in a panic. Told me you're trying to frame him for Maria's death. I'm giving you one chance to back off. The girl disappears. The investigation stops. Or everyone you love dies screaming. You have 24 hours. Below the text was a photo. It showed the Steel Serpent's compound from an aerial view. Red circles marked windows. Sniper positions. Another text, I'm already watching. Jackson showed the phone to Riley and Leo. Riley's face hardened with an expression far too old for her years. They're going to kill everyone, she whispered. Not if I kill them first, Jackson said. He had 24 hours to save his club. And his only lead had just vanished into the city. They made it back to the compound by noon, using back roads and staying off main highways. Jackson had called ahead, the Steel Serpents were on full alert, armed and watching every approach. The attack at the mill had left 2 men injured but alive. Danny had a broken arm and concussion. Everyone else had made it out. But the mood was poisonous. Marcus ran. Vic's voice was incredulous as Jackson stood before the assembled club in the meeting room. Our lieutenant? Your best friend since childhood? He destroyed the evidence and fled, Jackson said flatly. The recordings, the files, the photos, all of it showed him working with Sinaloa, running weapons through our operations. When we confronted him, he shot up the computer and took off. The room erupted into chaos. Bikers shouted over each other. Some refused to believe it. Others had clearly suspected Marcus all along. This is insane, someone yelled. Marcus has been loyal for 20 years. Loyalty doesn't mean shit when millions of dollars are involved, another countered. Quiet. Jackson's roar silenced them. I don't care what you believe. Here's what we know, Maria's dead. Tommy confessed to forcing her off the road on someone else's orders. Evidence pointed to Marcus. He destroyed that evidence and ran. Now someone's threatening to kill everyone in this compound if we don't back off. He held up his phone, showing the aerial photo with sniper positions marked. We have 24 hours before they make good on that threat. So here's what's happening, we lock down completely. No one enters or leaves. We arm every window and door. And we prepare for war. War with who? Vic demanded. Marcus? The cartel? Both? Everyone who had a hand in killing Maria, Jackson's voice was cold steel. I don't care if it's 1 man or 100. We end this. After the meeting dissolved into tense preparations, Jackson retreated to his office. Riley followed silently, closing the door behind them. For a long moment, neither spoke. Do you believe Marcus did it? Riley finally asked. Jackson stood at the window, watching his men fortify positions. The evidence says yes. That's not what I asked. He turned to look at her. What do you want me to say? That my gut tells me something's wrong? That 15 years of brotherhood can't vanish because of some files on a computer? Maria didn't think it was Marcus, Riley said quietly. Jackson froze. What? She never said his name. Not once in all our conversations. Riley moved closer. She said someone high up was dirty. Someone in leadership. But when she talked about Marcus, it was always Jax's brother or the lieutenant. She talked about him like he was separate from the investigation. Then why was his voice on that recording? His face in those photos? I don't know. Riley's voice was small. But Maria was smart. Really smart. If she suspected Marcus, wouldn't she have been more careful around him? Wouldn't she have told someone else? She told you. She told me to trust you. Only you. Riley pulled something from her jacket, a folded piece of paper, worn soft from handling. She gave me this too. Said I should only give it to you if things got really bad. If people you trusted started turning against each other. Jackson took the paper with shaking hands. It was a letter in Maria's handwriting. Jax, if you're reading this, I'm gone and things have gone sideways. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm sorry for the pain you're feeling and the impossible choices ahead. By now you've seen evidence that points to Marcus. Photos, recordings, financial records. It all looks damning. That's because it's meant to. Marcus isn't the traitor. He's the scapegoat. The real person behind this is someone smarter, more careful. Someone who knew I was investigating and planted evidence to frame Marcus because they knew you'd believe it. They knew it would tear the club apart from inside, you against your best friend, brother against brother. I don't have proof yet of who it really is. That's why I couldn't accuse anyone directly. But I know Marcus isn't capable of this. I've watched him with you, with the club. He's loyal to his core. Maybe too loyal, which makes him the perfect target. Trust your instincts, Jax. Not the evidence. The evidence can be faked. But you've known Marcus your whole life. You know his heart. The real traitor is still there. Still watching. Still waiting for you to destroy Marcus so they can take control completely. Find them. Make them pay. I love you. Always. Maria. Jackson's hands shook so hard the paper rattled. He read it twice, 3 times, Maria's words cutting through him like broken glass. She knew, he whispered. She knew they'd frame him. So Marcus is innocent? Riley asked. Maybe. Probably. Jackson's mind raced. Which means I just drove away my best friend and strongest ally. And the real traitor is still here in the compound, watching us scramble. Who? Riley moved to stand beside him at the window. Who in the club is smart enough to do all this? Jackson watched his men below. Vic directing the defensive positions. Other bikers hauling weapons and ammunition. Everyone moving with purpose and focus. Everyone except one person who stood apart, speaking quietly into a phone. Jackson's blood went cold. "How long have you been watching him?" Riley asked, following his gaze. "Not long enough." Jackson grabbed his pistol. "Stay here. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me." "Who is it?" Jackson looked at the man on the phone, the man who'd been treasurer for 5 years, who handled all the club's finances, who had access to every account and every transaction. Vic. The man who'd been loudest about not trusting Riley. The man who'd pushed hardest to see the USB evidence. The man who'd tried to turn the club against the investigation from the very beginning. "I've been hunting the wrong man," Jackson said. He headed for the door, vengeance in his eyes. Jackson didn't confront Vic immediately. That would be Marcus's mistake all over again, acting on emotion before having solid proof. Instead, he watched. For 2 hours, he observed from his office window as Vic moved through the compound. The treasurer talked to small groups, his body language casual but deliberate. He was organizing something. Building consensus. Turning people against the investigation, against Riley, against the hunt for Maria's real killer. "He's been doing this the whole time," Jackson muttered to Riley. "Steering us. First toward believing the warlords killed Maria. Then toward Tommy. Then toward Marcus. Always pointing us somewhere else." "What do we do?" Riley asked. "We need proof. Maria's letter says the evidence against Marcus was planted. That means Vic had access to create fake financial records, fake photos, fake everything." Jackson grabbed his phone. "And if he planted evidence against Marcus, there might be traces. Digital fingerprints." He called Leo. The tech answered on the first ring. "Please tell me you backed up those files before Marcus destroyed the computer," Jackson said. "Automatic cloud backup. Everything that loaded in those 3 minutes is saved on my secure server." Leo's voice carried through clearly. "I was going to tell you, but everything happened so fast. Send me everything you have on the financial records. Specifically anything showing who created or modified the files. On it. Give me 20 minutes." Jackson hung up and turned to Riley. "If we're right, Vic created fake evidence to frame Marcus. But he had to use club computers to access club accounts. That leaves a trail. And if you're wrong?" Riley's voice was small. "Then Marcus really is the traitor and I just threw away the last 24 hours we have to prepare." Jackson checked his pistol. "But Maria trusted you with that letter. She knew what she was doing." 15 minutes later, his phone buzzed. Leo had sent a compressed folder of recovered files. Jackson opened it on Maria's laptop, his hands moving quickly through spreadsheets and documents. There. Hidden in the file metadata was a username, V_Brennan. Vic's login. The fake financial records showing Marcus's offshore accounts had been created on Vic's computer, using Vic's credentials, 3 weeks after Maria died. He made them after she was already dead, Jackson breathed. He killed her, then created evidence to frame Marcus in case anyone kept investigating. Riley leaned closer to the screen. "But why Marcus? Why not frame someone else?" "Because Marcus was my best friend. My right hand. Destroying that relationship would cripple me emotionally and leave the club leaderless." Jackson's jaw clenched. "Vic's been treasurer for 5 years. If I fell apart and Marcus was gone, he'd be next in line to take control. He'd have everything, the club, the weapons operation, all of it." A knock at the door made them both jump. "Jax?" It was one of the younger bikers, a kid named Rafe. "Vic's calling another meeting. Says it's urgent. I'll be right there." When Rafe's footsteps faded, Jackson turned to Riley. "This is it. He's making his move. Stay here, stay quiet, and if things go bad, you run. There's an exit through the storage room that leads to the woods. You get out and you don't look back. I'm not leaving you. You will if I tell you to." Jackson's voice softened. "Maria trusted you with the truth. If I don't make it out of this, someone has to remember what really happened." He left before she could argue. The meeting room was packed. Every steel serpent was there, armed and tense. Vic stood at the head of the table, his face grave. "Brothers," Vic began, "we've got a serious problem. Our defenses are ready, but we're blind on intel. We don't know where Marcus went. We don't know when the cartel's coming. We're sitting ducks." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. "I've been making calls," Vic continued. "Reaching out to our allies in other states. The Iron Kings in Nevada, the Road Devils in Oregon, the Black Thorns in Arizona. They're willing to send reinforcements if we need them." "How many?" someone asked. 40 bikes. Maybe 50. Enough to turn the tide if the cartel comes at us in force." Vic's eyes scanned the room. "But we need to act fast. We need to move our operation before the cartel finds us here." "Move where?" Jackson asked quietly. Every head turned toward him. "A secondary location," Vic said smoothly. "Somewhere defensible. I've got a warehouse outside the city." "Your warehouse," Jackson stepped forward. "Your location. Your allies." "Convenient." Vic's expression didn't change. "What are you implying?" "I'm implying that you've been playing us from the start." Jackson pulled out his phone, displaying the metadata. "These financial records you showed us? The ones proving Marcus was dirty? You created them. 3 weeks after Maria died. Using your computer. Your login." The room went dead silent. Vic's face remained calm, but his eyes turned cold. "That's absurd. Anyone could have used my computer. My credentials could have been stolen." "Maria knew." Jackson pulled out the letter, holding it up. "She figured out you were running weapons through the club. She documented everything. And when she got too close, you had her killed." "This is insane," Vic said, but his hand moved slowly toward his vest. "Don't." Jackson's gun was already out, aimed at Vic's chest. "Put your hands on the table. Now." For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Vic smiled. It was cold and empty. "You're smarter than I thought," he said. "Maria was too. That's why she had to die." The room exploded. Bikers rushed forward, but Vic moved faster. He grabbed the man nearest to him, Rafe, and pressed a gun to the kid's head. "Everyone back." Vic dragged Rafe toward the door. "I walk out of here, or Rafe dies." "You walk out and you're dead within the hour," Jackson said coldly. "Maybe. But I've got insurance." Vic's smile widened. "I know where Marcus is hiding. I've got men on him right now. You shoot me, I don't call them off, and Marcus dies too. Your best friend. The brother you just realized you betrayed." Jackson's hand didn't waver. "Where is he?" "Let me walk. Then I'll tell you." "Tell me now, or I put a bullet in your knee and we'll see how many men you can command while screaming." Vic's expression flickered. For the first time, fear showed through. "Old Fletcher warehouse on the South Docks," he said quickly. "Pier 7. But my men are already there. You'll never reach him in time." Jackson's mind raced. The docks were 20 minutes away. If Vic had men there already. Riley's voice came from the doorway. "Then we better hurry." Every head turned. Riley stood there holding Jackson's backup pistol in both hands, aimed at Vic. "Let Rafe go," she said quietly. "Or Maria's not the only ghost you'll have to answer to." Vic's laugh was hollow. "You think a 10-year-old scares me?" No, Riley's hands didn't shake. But 30 steel serpents behind her should. The bikers had formed a wall behind Riley, weapons drawn, faces carved from stone. This was no longer about club politics or money. This was about Maria. About betrayal. About a little girl who'd kept her promise when grown men had failed. Vic's smile crumbled. He shoved Rafe forward and bolted through the side door. "Let him go," Jackson shouted as several bikers moved to chase. "We've got bigger problems. If Marcus is at the South Docks, we need to move now." "Could be a trap," someone warned. "Everything's a trap at this point." Jackson grabbed his vest. "But Marcus is my brother. I threw him to the wolves because I believed fake evidence. I'm not leaving him to die." "I'm coming too," Riley said. "Absolutely not. Maria made me promise to see this through." Riley's jaw set stubbornly. "That means all the way to the end." Jackson wanted to argue but didn't have time. "Fine. But you stay in the truck with armed guards. Non-negotiable." 5 minutes later, 20 motorcycles roared out of the compound, engines screaming into the afternoon. Jackson led on his bike with Riley in a reinforced SUV behind him, surrounded by 4 armed bikers. The rest spread out in formation, a rolling army of leather and chrome. Jackson's phone rang. Leo's voice came through his helmet's Bluetooth. "Jax, I've been digging deeper into Vic's files. You need to hear this. Make it fast. We're rolling hot." Vic wasn't just running weapons. He was running a whole network. 3 warehouses across 2 states, all storing military-grade hardware. ARs, explosives, anti-tank weapons. Enough firepower to start a war. Leo's typing came through frantically. "And there's more. He's got a major shipment scheduled for tonight. 20 million in weapons moving to the Sinaloa cartel. If that shipment goes through, Vic disappears with the money and the cartel owns the distribution network he built using your club's name." "Where's the shipment?" 3 locations. Pier 7 is one, that's where Marcus is. But there's also Warehouse 12 in the industrial district and a storage facility on Highway 9. All 3 are loading tonight. Vic's going to hit all of them simultaneously. Jackson's mind raced. 3 locations. 20 bikers. They'd have to split up. "Send the addresses to everyone's phones," he ordered. "We're dividing into teams." He made quick calls, organizing on the fly. 7 bikes would hit Warehouse 12. 6 would take Highway 9. Jackson and 6 others would assault Pier 7 to rescue Marcus. The sun was setting when they reached the docks. Massive shipping containers created steel canyons, shadows pooling between them like spilled ink. Jackson killed his engine 2 blocks out, approaching on foot. Riley stayed in the SUV with 2 guards, despite her protests. "Stay on the radio," Jackson told her. "You hear shooting, you drive straight back to the compound." "Be careful," Riley whispered. Jackson and his team moved through the container maze like ghosts. Ahead, Fletcher Warehouse loomed, a massive concrete structure with broken windows and rusted walls. Light spilled from inside. They were 50 feet away when gunfire erupted. Not at them, from inside the warehouse. Automatic weapons rattling in short, controlled bursts. "Marcus!" Jackson sprinted forward. His team followed, weapons up. They burst through the warehouse entrance into chaos. Marcus was pinned behind a forklift, bleeding from his shoulder, returning fire at 8 men in tactical gear. Crates were stacked everywhere, weapons crates marked with cartel symbols. A semi-truck idled near the loading dock, its trailer half-filled. The tactical team turned at the new threat. Bullets whined past Jackson's head. He dove behind a crate and came up firing. Beside him, his brothers did the same. The warehouse became a war zone. Gunfire echoed off concrete walls. Muzzle flashes strobed in the dim light. One of Vic's men went down. Then another. But they were well trained and well armed, using the crates for cover and firing in coordinated bursts. "Marcus!" Jackson shouted over the chaos. "You alive?" "Barely." Marcus's voice came back strained with pain. "Took a round in the shoulder. They've been here for 20 minutes. Can you move?" "Not fast." Jackson's radio crackled. "One of the teams at Warehouse 12, heavy resistance. We're pinned down. They've got," the transmission cut to static and screaming. "Another transmission from Highway 9, they knew we were coming. It's an ambush. We need backup." Vic had planned this perfectly. Split the steel serpents across 3 locations, ambush them all simultaneously, wipe out the club in one night. But he'd underestimated one thing. Steel serpents didn't break. "Push forward," Jackson roared. "Drive them back." His bikers moved like a machine, covering each other, advancing through the kill zone. One of Vic's men made a break for the truck. Jackson shot him in the leg. He went down screaming. 3 minutes of brutal combat later, the warehouse fell silent except for groaning wounded. 6 of Vic's tactical team were dead. 2 surrendered. Jackson's crew had taken minor wounds, nothing fatal. Jackson ran to Marcus, who'd slumped against the forklift. Blood soaked his shoulder, but his eyes were alert. "You came back," Marcus said weakly. "I'm sorry," Jackson's voice cracked. "I should have trusted you. Maria tried to tell me." Later, Marcus gripped his arm. "Vic's not here. He's at one of the other locations." "Which one?" "I don't know. But wherever he is, he's planning to blow them all. Erase the evidence. Kill anyone inside." Jackson's blood froze. "Explosives?" "I saw C4 wired to the support columns," Marcus gestured weakly at the warehouse ceiling. "There. And there. Remote detonators. He's going to bring this whole place down." Jackson's radio screamed with overlapping transmissions. Both other teams reporting explosives. Both asking for orders. 3 locations. 3 buildings rigged to blow. His brothers spread across all of them. And somewhere, Vic held the detonator. "Everyone out." Jackson's voice cut through the radio static. "All teams evacuate now. Buildings are rigged." He hauled Marcus to his feet, ignoring the man's grunt of pain. They stumbled toward the warehouse entrance as Jackson's team scattered. Behind them, the semi-truck sat loaded with millions in weapons, evidence they desperately needed. "We can't leave it," one biker shouted. "It's not worth your life." Jackson shot back. They made it 50 yards from the warehouse when Jackson's phone rang. "Unknown number." He answered. "Vic." "Smart boy," Vic's voice was cold. "You figured out the explosives. But here's your problem, Jax. I'm watching all 3 locations right now. I can blow any of them whenever I want. And I've got another surprise for you." Ice flooded Jackson's veins. "What surprise?" "Check on your little friend. The one in the SUV." Jackson spun. The SUV sat 2 blocks away, right where he'd left it. But something was wrong. The guards who'd been protecting it were face down on the ground. Not moving. "Riley." Jackson sprinted toward the vehicle, Marcus forgotten behind him. He reached the SUV and tore the door open. Empty. Riley was gone. A photo appeared on his phone. Riley sat in a chair in what looked like an office, zip-tied and gagged. Terrified but alive. Behind her stood Vic, one hand resting on her shoulder. "Shipping office, Pier 9, Vic's voice came through. 2 blocks east. You've got 10 minutes before I detonate everything. Come alone, or the girl dies first. Then your brothers." Then this whole dock goes up like the 4th of July. The line went dead. Marcus had caught up, breathing hard. It's a trap. I know. Jackson was already moving. Radio everyone. Tell them to get clear of the warehouses but stay close. When this is over, we'll need them. Jax. He's got Riley. Maria died protecting her. I'm not letting that be for nothing. Jackson ran through the container maze toward Pier 9. The shipping office sat at the end, a 2-story structure of corrugated metal and grimy windows. Light showed on the 2nd floor. He entered through the ground level, gun drawn, every sense screaming danger. The stairs creaked under his boots. At the top, a door stood half open. Jackson kicked it wide. The office was spartanly furnished, desk, filing cabinets, chairs. Riley sat in the center, still zip-tied, tears streaming down her face. Vic stood behind her, a detonator in one hand and a pistol pressed to her head with the other. Drop the gun, Vic said calmly. Jackson set his pistol on the floor and kicked it away. Smart. Now kick away the backup piece in your ankle holster. Jackson hesitated. Vic pressed the gun harder against Riley's temple. She whimpered through the gag. The backup weapon skittered across the floor. Better. Vic's smile was reptilian. You know what your problem is, Jax? You care too much. Maria cared too much too. That's why she had to die. She was innocent. She was a liability. Vic's finger rested on the detonator. She found my operation by accident, noticed some accounting discrepancies. Most people would have ignored it. But not Maria. She had to dig. Had to play detective. Had to ruin everything I'd built. You built it with club resources, Jackson said, keeping his voice level. Our money. Our reputation. Our brothers risking their lives while you got rich selling weapons to cartels. Our brothers are idiots playing dress-up on motorcycles. Vic's contempt was naked. I turned this club into a real business. A empire. And I would have shared it with you if you'd been smart enough to join me. You killed my wife. I gave an order. Tommy pulled the trigger, so to speak. Vic shrugged. Though if you want to get technical, you killed her. Your rigid sense of honor, your brotherhood nonsense. She died because she was loyal to you and your outdated ideals. Jackson's hands curled into fists. Every muscle screamed to attack, but Vic's finger was still on the detonator. One wrong move and everyone dies. What now? Jackson asked. You blow the warehouses, kill us all, disappear with the money? Close. Vic tilted his head. I blow the warehouses. Your brothers die. You and the girl die. The steel serpents collapse. And I resurface in 6 months in Mexico with a new name and enough money to live like a king. The cartel will hunt you for the lost shipment. The cartel thinks you stole it. I've already sent them evidence showing the steel serpents betrayed them. They'll spend years hunting ghosts while I disappear. It was perfect. Vic had thought of everything. Almost everything. Riley's eyes met Jackson's. Despite the gag, despite the zip ties, despite the gun to her head, she looked determined. Her gaze flicked down to her right hand. Her pinky finger moved. Tapped twice against her leg. Signal. She was signaling something. Jackson kept talking, buying time. Maria left evidence. Even with the USB destroyed, there are backups. People know the truth. What people? Marcus, who I successfully framed. Some kid nobody believes. Vic laughed. I've already got the club convinced you've lost your mind with grief. After you die tonight, I'll return as the grieving friend who tried to save you from your paranoia. Riley's finger moved again. Pointing toward the filing cabinet to Vic's left. Jackson's eyes flicked that direction for a split second. Something was there. Something she'd seen. Any last words? Vic asked. I'll make sure they're memorable at your funeral. Yeah, Jackson smiled coldly. Maria told me you'd monologue. She said you couldn't help yourself. Always had to be the smartest guy in the room. Vic's face darkened. What? She told Riley something else too. A third secret. The one she saved for the end. There's nothing. The filing cabinet, Jackson said clearly. Top drawer. Maria hid her real backup there 2 weeks before she died. Everything you did. Everything you said. She recorded it all and hid it where you'd never think to look, in your own office. Vic's eyes widened. His head turned slightly toward the cabinet. Riley moved. Small and fast, she threw herself backward, slamming her chair into Vic's legs. He stumbled, the gun and detonator both swinging away from their targets for one crucial second. Jackson launched himself forward. Jackson hit Vic like a freight train, driving them both into the wall. The detonator flew from Vic's hand, skittering across the floor. The gun went off, a deafening crack in the enclosed space, the bullet punching into the ceiling. They crashed through the office door and tumbled down the stairs in a tangle of limbs and fury. Jackson's fist connected with Vic's jaw. Vic's elbow caught Jackson's ribs. They hit the ground floor still fighting. Vic was younger, faster. But Jackson was pure rage given form. They rolled across concrete, each trying to gain advantage. Vic managed to get on top, his hands closing around Jackson's throat. Pressure built behind Jackson's eyes. His vision started to tunnel. A gunshot cracked. Vic jerked, his grip loosening. He looked down at the red bloom spreading across his side, confusion crossing his face. Marcus stood in the doorway, smoking pistol in his good hand, his wounded shoulder still bleeding. That's for Maria, Marcus said quietly. Vic collapsed sideways. Jackson shoved him off and gasped for air. His hands found Vic's throat now, squeezing. Wait, Marcus said. The detonator. Jackson froze. The detonator was still upstairs. Still active. Vic was the only one who knew how to disarm it. He loosened his grip slightly. Vic coughed blood, his face gray with shock. Disarm it, Jackson growled. Now. Or I let you bleed out slowly. Vic's laugh was wet and broken. Can't. It's on a timer. Set it. When you arrived. Buildings blow. In 3 minutes. Whether I'm alive or not. You're lying. Am I? Vic's smile was bloody. Only way to stop it is the override code. 8 digits. And I'm the only one who knows it. Jackson looked at Marcus. 3 minutes. Their brothers were still near those warehouses, waiting for the all clear. The code, Jackson said. Give it to me and I'll get you medical attention. So I can rot in prison? Vic coughed again. No thanks. I'd rather watch everything burn. Footsteps pounded on the stairs. Riley appeared, her zip ties cut, the gag pulled down. She held the detonator in both hands. 2 minutes 50 seconds, she said, reading the display. Riley, get out of here, Jackson ordered. Get back to the compound. There's no time. Riley knelt beside Vic. Maria figured out your code. She told me what it was in case we needed it. Vic's eyes widened. Impossible. She never. Your daughter's birthday, Riley said quietly. The daughter you haven't seen in 6 years because she won't talk to you. October 15, 2017. 10-15-20-17 inch. Vic's face went ashen. Riley's fingers moved over the detonator, punching in the numbers. For 3 agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then the display changed. Timer disarmed. Charges safe. The breath Jackson had been holding exploded out. Riley set down the detonator and looked at Vic with something like pity. Maria said you were broken long before you became evil. She felt sorry for you. But sorry doesn't bring her back. Vic's eyes were glazing over, blood pooling beneath him. How did she know? Because she paid attention, Riley said. She noticed everything. That's why you couldn't hide from her. That's why you had to kill her. Vic tried to speak again, but blood filled his mouth. His body went slack. He was gone. Jackson pulled out his radio. All teams, charges are disarmed. Secure the locations. Police will be here soon, we need to document everything before we go. Over the next hour, organized chaos reigned. The Steel Serpents photographed the weapons, the financial records in Vic's office, the tactical teams he'd hired. Everything that would prove Vic's guilt and the club's unwilling involvement. By the time sirens wailed in the distance, they'd gathered enough evidence to bury Vic's operation forever. Marcus received medical attention from a biker who'd been a combat medic. Jackson stood with Riley on Pier 7, watching the sun rise over the docks. It's over, Riley said quietly. Not yet, Jackson put a hand on her shoulder. There's one more thing we need to do. 3 days later, Maria's funeral finally happened. The same rural church. The same white roses. But this time, the truth had been told. Vic's betrayal was public. Marcus stood at Jackson's side, his arm in a sling but his head held high. Tommy sat in jail awaiting trial, having agreed to testify against Vic's remaining associates. The Steel Serpents filled the church, along with bikers from 3 other states who'd heard what happened and come to pay respects. Maria hadn't just been a biker's wife, she'd been a warrior who'd fought corruption and paid with her life. Riley stood beside the coffin one last time. She placed her hand on the polished wood. I kept my promise, she whispered. They know the truth. You can rest now. She stepped back. Jackson moved forward and read from a letter Maria had left, her final words, written weeks before her death. To my Steel Serpents family, if you're reading this, I've lost my fight. But I pray you've won yours. Protect the innocent. Stand for truth even when it costs everything. And please, give Riley the family she never had. She is the bravest of us all. His voice cracked on the last words. The coffin was finally closed. Finally lowered. Finally laid to rest with honor. After the burial, the Steel Serpents gathered in the parking lot. Jackson lifted Riley onto his motorcycle, settling her in front of him. You're one of us now, he said. For as long as you want to be. Riley looked around at the circle of bikers, hard men with soft hearts, warriors who'd become her family. Forever, she said. The motorcycles roared to life. 23 bikes plus one, Riley's name freshly painted on Jackson's tank alongside Maria's. They rode in formation through town, a memorial run for a fallen sister. People stopped and stared. Some saluted. Others bowed their heads. The Steel Serpents rode united, their enemies destroyed, their honor restored, their family whole again, minus one angel who watched from above. Riley held tight to Jackson as the wind whipped through her hair. For the first time in years, she felt safe. She felt home. Maria's promise was fulfilled. And in the rumble of engines and the warmth of brotherhood, Maria's spirit rode with them still. The end.